would love, since we've already kind of had this kind of like left to right across the board, like everybody shares their little word to describe the record that we talked about. I would love to hear what one piece of gear, and again, it sometimes it's the conventional like desert island, like I gotta have this thing with me if I only get to save one thing and put it in the life raft. But it can also kind of like be something a bit more non-traditional. It's up to whatever your interpretation of your favorite piece of gear candy might be. So, well, you've actually switched order on my screen now by my own doing. So Jesse, you're up first.
Oh man, this is tough. I'm going to go slightly unconventional, maybe, with this one. And I'm going to say my favorite piece of gear is my throne. I think the throne is a very underrated piece of equipment for the drummer, and I've sat on going from I forget which one I have, but it's like the tractor style seat with like the like hydraulic like lift thing, and it feels like sitting on a cloud. And anytime I go back to like any other throne, I'm like, I don't even want to play these drums if I'm sitting on this thing, which is so.
Do you have a lumbar support situation in there?
I actually don't. That sounds even greater.
I've like seen that a few times.
You're gonna look like such a fucking grandpa with like a full ass.
Honestly, you guys are fucking welcome. He shows up day one of this tour.
I'm just gonna have this
with the jazzy chair of thrones.
Jesse's gonna have a recliner. He's gonna be back 45 degrees playing these drums.
I'll have my drums all tilted up though, so like I'll still be able to play just fine.
Yeah. He can be none more behind the beat. We love that. Okay, that's a pretty good one, though. That's fair play. It's utilitarian, but also definitely informs your enjoyment of playing. So I totally hear you on that one. That's a good one. Victor, what do we have?
I am so not like a crazy gearhead. Like if we're talking like desert island piece of gear that I just need to have, like it's literally just an acoustic guitar. If we're talking about my favorite piece of gear that like we have, like it's definitely the Fender Meteora that I have. I love that guitar so much. Just the shape and the weight of it is amazing, and I've written some of my favorite songs on it. But generally, just an acoustic guitar, preferably a short scale, just so I can like take it to the beach and stuff and write whenever I want.
There you go. Very good. Right. I mean, honestly, it's like that's actually maybe the perfect goat if you actually literally are on an island alone by yourself. A drum throne, it's not gonna.
Hey, I'd be comfy. I mean, what do you do with one drum piece? I got my snare. That's not that useful, right?
You're still going to have to go fashion a whole drum set to put around that thing. So an acoustic though, you're in and you got a band, you're making a record immediately. So, with no way to record it. Matt, last but certainly not least, my friend, what would you pick as your piece of gear candy?
I also am not much of a gear nerd as far as like guitar players go. So many times I get approached by other guitar players. They start rattling off like really cool pedals and like their fucking like the numbers that come after them, and I have no idea what they're talking about. But I gotta say, I would say two things. An octave pedal is something that I sorely underestimated for a long time. And then when I watched, I think, a rig rundown of Chris Shiflett's setup, and he was talking about how he always just kicks on very lightly an octave pedal for lots of leads, and it helps cut through and just add some oomph.
Dude, this is a soul pog. This is an electro harmonic soul pog, and it's honestly broken. But that is, dude, that's, I mean,
huge.
Yes.
Huge
the answer is that is a great answer. Because dude, you're right. Especially like even just like in the trenches, like tracking just to give something a little extra like boost to push through live in a mix.
Oh yeah.
I love them, Tom. I downright love them. I can't get enough of them. My band's got it's bad. I'm hooked.
The octave pedal is also so interesting because like, not only is it shifting up like musically, like where it is, or like just lightly underneath, but like the harmonic richness is nothing like a chord, and especially if you're going into something complex like a tube amp or anything like that, where it's furthering the harmonics. Now you're getting a whole different harmonic series potentially, depending on what you're going into. So like, yeah, of course, but octave pedal and like electric guitar,
endless potential. Matt, do you have a favorite? Do you have one that either that you use live or like a setting that even like in the box that you really like, something that does that really nice for you?
The octaves setting on the Kemper. It's a free Kemper plugin.
Nice.
I do have an actual octave pedal in MXR, I think, but I am now programming for this next tour. For the first time, I'm programming Kemper settings, and I've been using octaves and the Zach Cervini amp pack in addition to a Vox AC20 emulator, because I love Vox, but I don't know if we're going to be able to carry those around forever. So we're doing digital now. And I would say don't underestimate digital. I mean, we track everything on Kemper, and it sounds fucking great. So
yeah.
Listen, this is a safe gear space right now. There is no judgment.
I love tube amps though. I own two. Right. I love them, but
exactly. Yeah. And as I as well, we've got a studio full of them, and I will literally, you'll have to pry my Jubilee out of my cold dead hands. But we do, for sake of international touring, do run we run Helix stuff and in that regard, and have found a nice balance to strike with that. So yeah, it's, if there's a way to work smarter, but still keep yourself inspired with what you're hearing and be able to switch and be malleable. Yeah. It seems like that's exactly what you guys need to be able to do for the writing style that you kind of described, and how you're putting together these records and composing them. So it just makes a ton of sense for sure. So there's no need. There are no guilty pleasures here on Gear Candy, Matt. That's a phenomenal answer. Ooh, octaves.
Octaves.
Wait, it should be octaves.
It should be.
Just
for the octaves. Exactly. Octaves. Thank you, Jesse. Thank you.
Oh.
When you fly, do you pack your Helix and stuff do you take it out of the rack and pack it in luggage and then rent rack when you get there, or do you ship it all together?
No, we run, neither, because we run Helix floors instead of the rack mounted units. But yes, fly gear can be expensive. This kind of goes outside the purview of the actual recording or tracking, but is a really practical thing that, yes, a lot of people probably don't talk about, but maybe should be talked about more, Tom, on this show, because it's interesting.
Well, yeah, and the one thing I will say about the Helix stomp boxes, if you're doing wireless, the Helix floor boxes plus the wireless offers some unique, let's call them unique issues. Whereas like if you had like a rack, like the Kemper rack, and you're running the floorboard, your runs are a lot shorter to your like wireless receiver if you're doing that.
Are you
so, like,
talking trash about my rig?
He said it was unique.
I like the way you said it. It doesn't present problems. It offers you issues.
It offers problems.
Okay, right.
Yeah.
It offers you the opportunity to find a solution to that shitty issue. Listen, honestly, Tom, I did not see it going this way. Matt, look at the can of worms you've opened up now.
Octaves.
Tom's in trouble. No, Tom is right. But but what's interesting is circling back to what you said in terms of like fly gear, getting it to like weigh. I mean, a band I worked with literally told me, it's like, what did you use? What rental gear did you use when you went to the UK? It's just like, I bought a seat for my triple rec. I was like, you've got to be joking. You spent, I was like, hey, I don't know. I like either didn't know or just really, it was like, I love this. I know that it's going to work, whatever. Yes. So in lieu of doing that, sometimes, finding like a right fly chassis. And I would imagine if you have that and or playback stuff, you can probably get them all in one and get them underweight or something. And depending on like the in-ear monitor stuff that y'all on ears or wedges. Yeah.
I will say with the floor the floor cases though, the super positive thing about like having a small compact unit that is everything in one is that if you are flying, you can pack them into like a Pelican Air
Yes.
and have it be your carry-on.
Oh,
So,
look who's come around.
I just get
Wait,
paranoid
what's
of
this,
like
Tom?
if I crack the screen on a thing that I'm supposed to be stepping on, that is also the amp.
Oh,
Like-
yeah, it's petrifying.
Yeah. Like,
But-
No, those things are real sturdy, made of wood. They're
Okay.
gonna last. They're gonna last days for sure.
it's a new territory because I've been playing a Marshall DSL 100 for like years and years and years,
Yeah.
and now going digital. So it's a new world.
Yeah, it's whatever makes you comfortable. I mean, it's either way you're finding a balance, right? What I really loved about like the Helix floor is I was able to very much mirror the actual physical layout of my analog board, like where everything was positioned, because I'm so
Totally.
used to in my brain, like reverb delay stuff, top left corner, like my overdrive here, my octave pedal, like my pitch shift right here. Like, so I could do that same thing across 10 buttons and have it pretty similar. So I didn't have to like relearn a whole new operating system, but and having the screen there is nice because you know what patch you're on, which is always something that I kind of get nervous about, especially when you're running or doing changes and kind of, everything's going dead and everything has to come back in next track and next tune. You want to make sure that you're not on a really bad patch with a digital capo that's going to be very apparent.
That's the thing. The Digitech drop tuning stuff.
Yeah.
That's another one where I'm like, I think I'm going to do a guitar switch on this tour just to ease into it. But when we go overseas for the first time, I'm going to have to use a drop tune pedal. I don't know. I've just heard. I've seen many times people just be like, "Oh yeah, I was in the wrong tuning and I just had to transpose it live."
Yeah.
I'm like, that sounds like hell.
It didn't drop it the full. It dropped it a half step instead of a whole step. Turns out that doesn't sound good. Well, yeah, no, any of that. But also even like, you're talking about like one of these,
Desert.
right? Yeah, like, you know what I mean? Like if this guy, like, this is not a great design. Because if that gets knocked one, notch, then all of a sudden you're dropping 2 half steps instead of 1. But yes, you'll figure it out. You're golden. Honestly, just throw that bad boy in a rack, sum it all together, weigh it out, and then you got to know that whoever you're probably talking to at the airline desk for check-in is going to be awful to you anyway. So, it won't matter.
Or on the flip side, really great and
roll the dice.
Sure. In Tom's make-believe world, they're really
They'll
great.
be really nice than Tom's world.
They'll be like, "Oh my God, you're in a band."
That's so cool.
Yeah, they won't be like that, I promise.
Yeah.
But maybe they will be. Again, it's like you guys have a nice charm. Just go in and just realize, listen, I could never do what you do, ma'am. And
or sir.
In this make believe scenario, I had to choose who I was speaking to. And you just got to lead with your heart. And when they tell you that no, that's overweight, it won't fly, you have to say, well, then you tell me how that'll be getting over there because it has to get over there. That's interesting. Are you guys going to set it on a raft and drift it over there? Or, that's a weird policy. Things are really changing at the airlines, huh? But anyway, I digress. All of that is to say gear can also be fun. But yeah, considering, and I mean, it is practical because you can have whatever you want in the studio, but at some point you're going to have to try to recreate something like that in a live setting 9 times out of 10. And these are good things to consider. And the earlier in the process you can consider, how you might attack that, often the better. I've always been a big fan of like, that's why for Wonder Years, when we get in a room, we want to make sure that the song sounds great before we throw like tracks behind it or start pulling out laptops or anything. It's just like, does this work with like, if everything goes down and we're just a punk band again, is there something happening that's compelling, you know? And sure, we can break those rules a little bit here and there, but I think it's for that reason that like we've kind of built stuff into the songs and the arrangement that we know is going to work really well live too, you know? So that's a great consideration. And I think that's also just goes back to, like you guys getting it right, being able to experiment with good composition, you know?
I don't know if you guys ever like bring down like the key of anything live or anything, but that's definitely something that we've had to look into. Like for songs like Seeing Red and Wide Eyes, like we're bringing those down like a whole step live just because they're so high. But when we were tracking, we were like, well, we're not going to sacrifice how this sounds on the record just to make it possible live. We'll do what we have to do to make it work live.
Yeah. And I mean, Victor, that's another really interesting consideration because your actual piece of gear candy, even though you did not select this one, is quite literally your voice. And you can't really get another one of those or have a backup.
We're looking into it.
Hey, honestly, as I say that, Victor gets well, you know what? I mean, I'm an idiot. As I say this, like in probably like less than 12 months, the AI is going to make that possible.
AI is getting crazy. So
yeah. So, but yeah. So it probably won't even matter as I say this, but I'll still say it.
Ernie Ball AI. Voice chords.
Yeah. But yeah, it comes in pedal form. It's like you don't think about having to do them repeatedly night after night. And then the second you start headlining, the sets get longer and the sets get longer, the tours get longer, but that key stays the same place and it's super high and your voice, but yeah, it's like you do sound good and you can push it in the studio. But yeah, I mean, we have brought, our guitars have slowly traveled south in tuning over the years. Yeah. We started out at drop D, went to C sharp. We now live in a drop C world or a D standard world, right? So
dude, D standard's fun to play in though. It's like so just
it feels buttery, and honestly, there's also a little secret sauce to that in terms of like the harmonic spectrum, because that all is kind of fixed, but your guitars are like sitting a little lower. So for us, it's like we liked both things about that, and the things don't sound bad. They have a slightly different color, but if the vocal's the loudest friggin' thing in the mix, whether us guitar players want to know that or not, or admit it. And so, you got to help your team out, you got to help your other gents that are in the trenches with you out. And if that means like that your singer can last through an entire set and for an entire tour, it's probably more important than, what hits the exact sweet spot on your guitar. Sacrifices will be made, Tom, is what we're saying.
Oh, yes. We make sacrifices in guitar world, but they end up just being fun because it's just like a new way to play it,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, well, with that, it's been a very robust Gear Candy segment, Tom. That really took some twists and turns, and I like it.
Yeah.
Thank you, gentlemen. Once again, good luck out there on tour, and good luck at the airport. And tell whoever your check-in and baggage handler is that I wish them the best.
Thanks so much.
Cheers.